Welcome to today's news briefing presented by Cal OES, Office of Emergency Services, and Listos, California, and co-hosted by Ethnic Media Services and California Black Media. I'm Sandy Close, EMS Director. Our briefing today focuses on a pathway to recovery, building toward a safer and more resilient future. We all bore witness to the devastating extreme weather events of the last several weeks. Those storms brought with them a heavy toll for thousands of Californians. While many of our neighbors experienced severe disruptions to their normal routines, others were forced to deal with unthinkable damage to property, while others lost loved ones. 2 weeks ago, we came together to present a briefing that focused on how to safely navigate such natural disasters. With the brunt of this severe weather behind us, we now turn our attention to recovery. Today, you will hear from several federal, state, and local experts who will provide information that you can convey to your audiences to help them pick up the pieces and build toward a safer and more resilient future. The message of our speakers for our audiences: we are California for all. Together, we will move forward with a renewed spirit and a unified, galvanized front. Speakers, please speak slowly, as I'm doing, for our interpreters in Spanish, Mandarin, and Korean. Reporters, please enter questions in the chat box, which we will take up after each speaker as time allows. We urge speakers to respond to questions on the chat in writing as well as in person. We'll send a video of today's briefing and expanded bios with contact information for each speaker to all participants later today. And now I turn the conference over to our moderator, Regina Brown Wilson, Executive Director of California Black Media, who will introduce our speakers. Regina.
Thanks so much, Sandy, and thanks so much for joining the call today. You're going to hear from experts, as Sandy said, that have been on the front lines. Our first speaker is going to be Dayana Crofts-Pelayo, Assistant Director of Communications and Public Affairs at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. You may remember her from the last briefing. Dayana will provide a brief overview of recovery resources available to Californians. We'll also hear from Robert Troy, Assistant Director of Interagency Recovery Coordination. Robert will take us through how Cal OES coordinates local, state, and federal recovery efforts. Then next, Brian Bui, who is the Region 9 Emergency Management Specialist for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Brian will offer insights into the types of resources available to Californians at the federal level. You'll also hear from Luis Santos-Serrano, Public Information Officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration. Luis will go through ways in which businesses impacted by the recent storms can seek relief at the federal level. And our last speaker will be Dayana Contreras, who's Listos California Program Manager with the Catholic Charities of Diocese of Fresno. And she'll be providing a community-based organizational perspective for all those who are on the ground and front lines working with directly with community. So now we'll begin with Dayana. You can go ahead.
Thanks so much, Regina, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time to kind of hear from us today. I am Dayana Crofts-Pelayo with the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and here generally to give a high-level overview of the work being done specifically to help the state and Californians recover from these winter storms. A quick overview, these winter storms have caused damage and destruction to communities statewide. 9 atmospheric rivers, trillions of gallons of water, many weeks of wind, snow, and rain, and unfortunately 21 deaths recorded so far. It's really been an incredible force of nature, but also I will say that the state and its partners on the local and federal level have stepped up in an incredible way as well to ensure Californians have the resources they needed before, during, and after these storms. And so I know our partners will kind of discuss a little bit more in detail about the comprehensive resources available to winter storm survivors, and you'll hear from colleagues at Cal OES that are specific to recovery, and also FEMA that will give more of kind of that individual assistance overview, but want to kind of remind folks of where we've come so far. And so California really held a tightly coordinated response to these winter storms. Very quickly, Governor Newsom included 41 counties in his emergency declaration. And basically this was to assist with rapid resources from the federal government to come into local communities to help with any response needed during the storms. Then subsequently, and again, Robert Troy will get into this a little bit more, but Cal OES and the state submitted a presidential major disaster declaration for 49 counties. So far, FEMA has approved 9 specifically for this individualized financial support. There are a little bit of nuances, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but ultimately, we want people to know that, you know, the state of California is committed to continuing our support to communities and maximizing, you know, the aid that comes in to help them recover from winter storms. And so, you know, now that this major disaster declaration has been declared, you know, eligibility for federal programs will be based on specifically on the unique damage and extent of impacts incurred locally. So you'll kind of see some of that nuance in a little bit. And I think it's important also to talk about that we are so thankful to have kind of a key speaker, Dayana, who's going to talk from Catholic Charities in a little bit, who's part of our Listos California program, that ultimately is a statewide effort for us as Cal OES and as a state to get into communities and really become the trusted messengers for Californians that are in high-risk areas, not only because of emergencies or natural disasters that could occur, but, you know, that just maybe have had barriers to entry when it comes to a lot of the support that they receive generally. And so that specific example of how we are actually partnering with trusted messengers and community-based organizations through this recovery effort to maximize and help survivors get the resources that they need, and also co-working with FEMA on a lot of this is, I think, a national model that we're hoping is followed in other disasters as well. You know, and as we look to kind of help communities recover quickly, we can't forget that we need to be prepared and vigilant as we see more complex and natural disasters. It's not an if, but when the next disaster will strike. And so I think that we hadn't really thought that we would have a major flooding incident in California. We're known for our wildfires and earthquakes, but ultimately we want Californians to be prepared for a whole host of natural disasters that could occur in their area. And so, as the governor has said before, the hots are getting hotter, wets are wetter, and the dries are even drier. And so we will begin and continue to see kind of these ever complex natural disasters and emergencies hitting Californians in unique ways that maybe we haven't seen before. And so we'll discuss a little bit more about the resources available to survivors of these winter storms, but generally really want people to know that they can go to listoscalifornia.org for preparedness tips. And those are 5 simple steps that can be used in any emergency or disaster. And so it's good to be prepared now. Let this be a reminder for you to have those conversations with your family and really make the difference for the next time an emergency strikes. so that families are ready. And so with that, I will hand it back over to Regina. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, we had some questions that popped into the chat, so thank you so much, Deanna. One question is from Deanna Martinez. Is Los Angeles now also included as a county that is eligible for assistance? Have additional counties been added?
Yeah, and generally what I'll say is I think Robert Troy and also FEMA will have better answers there to kind of talk about what's happening in other counties that were included. LA is not part of the 9, but I know that they are part of kind of some other federal support that has been received.
Great. And one more question from her. Ms. Martinez asked, is OES anticipating extreme weather like this in the coming weeks or just long term?
It's long term. And so what we're seeing is, wildfire events like we have not seen before. Fires acting in a way that we haven't seen from our decades of experience at OES. And so that's on top of just kind of climate change and also having these more complex disasters, and where everything is kind of being combined and coordinated with to ensure that we can have Californians be prepared for the next one. And so again, wildfires will probably be more intense, we'll have more extreme weather. And I think what we can predict is that we can't predict a lot of it, but we want to ensure that communities and families have what they need to ensure that they are safe. And then we as a state are also doing everything we can to mitigate some of these impacts in the long term to communities as a whole.
Okay. And then one last question from her is, what keeps you up at night about recovery efforts?
Recovery efforts, maybe not so much, but ultimately what keeps me up at night are earthquakes, to be honest with you. And so I think that if you have a medium-sized earthquake in kind of a more rural, less populated area, that that might not cause as much damage as having a medium-sized earthquake in Los Angeles, right? And so I think that the one that we're not thinking about and kind of that big one are the two things that keep me up, and then ensuring that we can do our due diligence as a state, partnering with our local governments and federal partners to ensure people get the resources they need afterwards, after an incident like that happens. I think I'll do a little plug too, that we have an earthquake early warning app. And so we want folks to know that there are a whole host of resources for you. And you can get actually alerting before you feel shaking start, and you can take protective action. So that's the one thing I'm thinking about, but that's what we're used to here in California.
Thanks so much, Deanna. I will let anybody know if you have additional questions. We'll move on to the next speaker. And if you do have the questions, I think Deanna is staying around with us, so you'll be able to ask. And I know we have several people, so I'm going to go to our next speaker, which is Mr. Robert Troy.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us and different disaster response and recovery partners here in California. It really does take a full, great conversation to discuss how we can best support each other. So appreciate your time and thank you for the invitation. My name is Robert Troy, and I'm the Assistant Director for Interagency Recovery Coordination here at Cal OES. For a little background on Cal OES, within Cal OES, the Recovery Directorate is responsible for identifying disaster impacts and assisting local governments, special districts, nonprofit organizations, individuals, and businesses impacted by disasters to gain access to whatever available recovery support resources are available for that particular disaster. In short, it's our job to try and truly measure the impacts from disasters, because all disasters are different, and to try and bring together whatever support we can that will help local communities respond to those disasters. We also work with our state and federal partners to provide coordinated and efficient, timely support throughout the recovery process. The recovery process starts on day one and can take years for large scale disasters. And so certainly that will be the case here as well. We just discussed a little bit on earthquakes, and certainly those can take many years to recover, but even storm events like this can take months and years to fully repair local infrastructure and local recovery capabilities. During a disaster, Cal OES works with local governments to rapidly respond and help support recovery. So every single county in the state has a dedicated Cal OES emergency services coordinator to.
Hey, Robert, really quick, didn't mean to interrupt. Can you speak just a tad bit slower? Our interpreters were having a hard time keeping up.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So we have established relationships with every county within the state so that when the disaster strikes, we're not shaking hands and introducing ourselves after the fact. And so that's really key to have those pre-established relationships and trust established before the disaster happens. After that happens, we, as soon as possible, bring to the table all available recovery partners. So as has been mentioned, we have already a number of approvals from FEMA to bring in federal disaster recovery support, and also from the Small Business Administration. They are both really key partners that we work with on a regular basis to support recovery needs here in California. There's a saying in emergency management that all disasters begin and end locally. That is certainly true, but it is our mission here at Cal OES to ensure that local communities don't do that alone. Cal OES is there with them on day one and until the final days of recovery are underway. So as part of that, we work to bring in, to do damage assessments for the impacted areas and communities. And as you can imagine, in an event like this, where almost the entire state has been impacted, that is truly a Herculean effort to do that. We really appreciate our federal partners stepping in and being here with us in person across the state to do those damage assessments. As was mentioned, we currently have 9 counties that have been included for the individual assistance program. But we currently have teams made up of state, local, and federal partners out across the state today conducting additional damage assessments. And wherever we can, we will add additional counties to that major disaster declaration. There's also something called the Public Assistance Program, which is a federally funded but also state funded program where we can help local communities, local governments to pay for, to reimburse for the response and recovery cost that for the local impacts. And that helps to free up funding to help provide for other types of recovery needs. And so we currently have 9 counties that are also approved for that program, but we expect many more to be added and hopefully in the very near future. And we will certainly keep you informed on that. Dayana mentioned that we had an expedited major disaster declaration request that was approved, and that was really to bring all of the federal family to the table to help partner with the state to support the response to the disaster. But we're in the process of following up with recovery programs that will provide longer term support to counties and communities here in California. Help is available both online and in person. So we've worked with our local partners as well as our state and federal partners to stand up local assistance centers or disaster recovery centers across the state. As of today, we have 7 that are open today and another 7 that are going to be coming online and open soon. And those are noted on the Cal OES recovery website. We can provide that URL. As more counties head out of response and into recovery, we expect that number of centers to grow as well. And then our FEMA partner, Brian Bui, will discuss also how folks that live within declared counties can register and get FEMA support, on whether online or in person. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Regina, you're on mute.
You would think that I've known this 3 years. I should know already. So sorry. I was saying that I had a couple of questions that had come into the chat. And I think you saw one. Are you able to enter the website in the chat box to link to the program? Secondly, what have we learned about emergency preparation from these latest storms? Where are the holes and have we filled them?
Thank you. So yes, I will drop in the URL for the Cal OES recovery website that links to some of those programs and also to those disaster recovery centers that I mentioned. As far as getting FEMA assistance, I'll let Brian Bui discuss that and where folks can go for that information for their program. As far as preparing for disasters, I'm stating the obvious here, but disaster recovery takes place over a long period of time, and we have multiple overlapping disasters. So we're still helping communities recover from the fires that occurred across the state back in early September during that record-breaking heat dome that we all experienced. At the same time, we're working with Humboldt County on recovery for the Ferndale earthquake that occurred in late December, and then with a significant aftershock on New Year's Day as well. We're also still working for communities to help them recover from the 2021 fires and the 2020 fires as well. So, and as Dayana mentioned, it won't take much more rain to cause additional impacts because the ground is so saturated right now from the recent weather events. And of course, we're always vigilant for an additional seismic event that could happen at any time. So one of the things that we encourage and provide access to are mitigation funds and programs to help build more resilient communities, right? And so every time we go out and repair a damaged road or a damaged facility post-disaster, we highly encourage local communities to also invest in mitigation as well to build back in a more resilient manner so that we can better withstand future disasters. And so we also help to provide funding for that as well.
Great. And last question for you is, what is the advice to individuals who really don't have access to broadband or don't trust government?
Great question. And I'm sure our friends at FEMA and SBA will discuss that as well. But that's exactly why we offer in-person disaster recovery centers, right? So that anybody can go in there and get the type of assistance they need. We also, in partnership with FEMA, have mobile intake centers. I'll let Brian discuss that. But that's an effort to try and get out and meet folks where they are and provide them the same level of assistance as much as possible.
And this is from Henrietta Burrows. What is being done to encourage people to move from vulnerable areas?
Great question. That's where we also work with our local communities to provide mitigation funding so they can help to lessen the impacts of future disasters. And part of that can be potentially helping folks to move out of high-risk areas, right? That's a local decision that is made, but at Cal OES, it's our job to help provide funding and technical assistance for that.
Okay, and will the state deficit cut into any of the resources for recovery?
Another great question. We have a dedicated funding source within the state dedicated to disaster response and recovery, as does FEMA. So although it's never good to have tighter budgets and greater deficits, both at the federal and the state level, we have funding that's pretty well insulated from those types of impacts. There's absolutely positively a high level recognition that we need to be able to provide the support for local communities pre and post disaster.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We will, Mr. Robert Troy will still stay around if there's other questions that end up popping up and we get back to him. But next, I would like to bring on Mr. Bui.
Thank you, Regina. My name is Brian Bui. I am a emergency management specialist from FEMA Region 9 out in Oakland, California, and we'll be talking about the assistance available to individual survivors that were directly impacted from this storm or these storms. And individual assistance is a pretty sizable subcomponent of FEMA, which includes mass care and emergency services, voluntary agency coordination, community services program, including disaster case management, crisis counseling assistance, disaster legal services, and disaster unemployment assistance. But I want to focus on the individuals and households program for today's presentation. And as previous speakers have mentioned, there were 49 counties under the emergency declaration, but under the current major disaster declaration, there are currently 9 designated counties designated for individual assistance, including those on the screens: Calaveras, Merced, Monterey, Sacramento, San Joaquin, San Luis Obispo, San Mateo, Santa Barbara, and Santa Cruz. There is a potential for additional counties to be designated for individual assistance. And as Mr. Troy mentioned, we continue to conduct joint damage assessments with county officials, the SBA, Cal OES, and FEMA IA. So as it relates to individuals, they are able to register for FEMA and may be eligible for assistance under the IHP, the Individuals and Household Programs. The two major subcomponents of the IHP includes housing assistance and other needs assistance. Under housing assistance, eligible survivors may be eligible for rental assistance, temporary lodging, repair assistance, or replacement assistance. And under other needs assistance, personal property damage can be replaced, transportation repairs can be assisted with, funeral costs, medical and dental costs, childcare, and other miscellaneous costs. The current maximum for each category of assistance this fiscal year is up to $41,000 per household. And this is, of course, expenses or losses not covered by insurance. So for the process of registering for FEMA, an applicant can call the 1-800 number. That's 1-800-621-FEMA. That's 3362. And as Mr. Troy mentioned, they can also go in person to a state local assistance center or a joint disaster recovery center. There's knowledgeable staff, not only from FEMA IA, but also mitigation that can assist with a survivor's recovery efforts. A survivor can also register for FEMA via the internet, that's disasterassistance.gov, or download the FEMA app onto their mobile device. The registration deadline is March 16th of this year for all designated counties, and assistance is provided for up to 18 months after the date of declaration, or July 15th, 2024. And in order to be eligible for FEMA, a survivor must meet the general conditions of eligibility, which includes being a U.S. citizen, a non-citizen national, or a qualified alien. They must prove their identity and that they were occupying their primary residence at the time of the disaster. Also, this is for uninsured or underinsured disaster cause expenses and serious needs as it relates to housing assistance and other needs assistance. I know that I covered a lot in these past couple minutes, and I'll defer to Regina to field any questions that the group may have.
No, that's so great. Thank you, Mr. Bui. What about the rural counties in the far north, like Del Norte and Siskiyou counties? Do we really know how badly these areas were hit?
So referencing Mr. Troy's quote regarding local assistance or recovery being at the local level. So the county officials can make that request through Cal OES for FEMA to conduct a joint preliminary assessment with the county officials, the SBA, Cal OES, and FEMA IA. At this juncture, those counties have not there is a potential for additional damage assessments, but we are currently not we have no teams assessing in those counties mentioned.
Okay, and another question came in. Could you compare the impact of the storms on the cities and the suburbs versus the rural regions?
It wasn't so much rural versus urban areas. It was more the Central Coast definitely got impacted much more so than the inland areas. So right now, the list of counties designated for individual assistance includes the Central Coast counties of San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Monterey. Those were quite heavily impacted. So it's more geographically based than an urban or rural base designation.
Okay, and let's see here. Next question is, FEMA has a reputation for being very slow in providing release. Is the turnaround time faster now? And how fast can people expect to actually get financial help?
So within 4 days of the presidential declaration, we were able to push out our first payments. It really depends on meeting the general conditions of eligibility. Once the applicant passes the ID checks, the citizenship tests and whatnot, the computer automatically spits out an inspection number. And once a survivor gets a FEMA inspected losses, the payment usually goes out, if they're eligible, within 7 to 10 days.
Okay, great. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to put them in that chat. They can directly chat me. If not, Mr. Bui will also be around to be able to answer other questions. I will say to your last question, someone said, that was impressive. So just so you know that was a little commentary from them. Henry Burrows also has asked a question. Is there any follow up to payments to reduce fraud?
There are, yes. So right now, in an effort to even prevent the fraud payments from going out, there are new system checks that we have implemented recently, but we do have dedicated teams at our processing centers for recruitment to ensure that only eligible payments are going out to those in the most need.
Okay, great. Let's see here. If I don't see any other questions, you'll still stick around for us. One more question. Could you assess the impacts of the storms on Oakland since you're based there?
We currently have 2 teams in Alameda County conducting those damage assessments. I'm currently in Sacramento. I don't know the individual impacts of survivors in Alameda County, but we do have teams out there assessing the damages currently.
Okay. And Vietas, there's another question here. Do you have any special coverage for agricultural lands?
So FEMA individual assistance covers, as the program name implies, individuals and households. Farms and other agricultural businesses. We're also working with the USDA currently, and we have a task force stood up here at the Joint Field Office. So any agricultural claims can be made through the USDA, but as it relates to families and households, we are able to assist through our IHP program.
Okay, another question came in. If a legal resident, not a citizen, is a homeowner and their property got damaged by the storm, is there no recourse or support from FEMA for them?
A legal resident? Sorry,
So yeah, if they're legal resident but not a citizen.
So the 3 categories of eligibility includes U.S. citizen, non-national citizen, and qualified alien. So without knowing the qualified alien status, I can certainly follow up with that question. But a minor child can be used as a primary registrant if they're under 18 and is a qualified alien or a U.S. citizen as part of that household. Okay,
this is just clarified, a green card holder or a H-1B visa.
Those are qualified alien statuses, and those households can register and may be eligible for FEMA assistance, yes.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is, if there's any other questions that end up coming in the chat, we'll circle back to Mr. Bui, but we'll go on next. Luis Santos-Serrano.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation, the opportunity that everyone is giving us, the SBA, to share very important information and how the multi-agency effort for this presidential disaster declaration that has been approved already, as our FEMA colleagues certify that 9 counties has been right now declared as part of this disaster declaration, how the Small Business Administration, or SBA, works and offers disaster assistance. SBA offers federal low interest disaster loan to businesses of all sizes, most private and non-profit organizations, homeowners, and renters. Business of any size that may borrow up to $2 million for the specific purpose to repair or replace the disaster property damage. That's what we call a physical disaster loan. So businesses may apply up to $2 million, and the interest rate can be as low as 3.305%. So it can be a really low interest disaster loan. For small businesses engaged in agriculture, and most private nonprofit organizations may also borrow to help meet disaster cost working capital needs. If you need funds, extra funds, because your business, let me just give you a very quick example. Just business was impacted economically because it needed to close the doors because of the floods. Customers stopped getting into your shop or your business, and you have less cash available, and you need working capital loans. You may apply up to $2 million, or in a combination, if your business was impacted physically and you need funds to repair or replace the disaster property damage, including machinery, equipment, inventory, among others, and at the same time, you need working capital loan in a combination, the maximum amount is up to $2 million. But not only for businesses, if you're a homeowner or a renter, FEMA may refer you to the SBA. SBA disaster loans are the primary source of money to pay for repair or replacement needs or costs not fully covered by insurance or other compensation. So we encourage everyone, if they have insurance, please submit your insurance request so you can have a better understanding, a better overview. If you may need additional funds to recover, you may apply for a federal low interest disaster loan. And for homeowners, they may borrow up to $200,000 to repair or replace their primary residence. If you're a homeowner, but you have multiple residences, for your primary residence, it will be up to $200,000. And if your additional homes may be considered as businesses, so you may apply as well. For homeowners and renters, they may borrow up to $40,000 for what? To replace personal property, including vehicles. So that personal property that was damaged, for example, because of the floods, your TV and other things inside your home were damaged, and that's what we call personal property. You may apply up to $40,000. So our recommendation here from the SBA and our multi-agency effort to help you get back to the day before you were impacted by the disaster, and specifically this was the winter storm, the flood, the mudslide that occurred starting on December 27, 2022. We encourage everyone to first register with FEMA at www.disasterassistance.gov, www.disasterassistance.gov. And that's the faster way that you can start the recovery process. For homeowners and renters, you can decide, or you should submit your SBA disaster loan application, even if you're not sure that you will need or want that loan. And I'm going to expand a little bit on that. This disaster declaration has a due date for you to submit your registration with FEMA or your application. And speaking about the SBA, we work and we follow the lead of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. The physical damage due date to submit your application is March 16, 2023. Why we encourage everyone to submit your application for a federal low interest disaster loan, because that will give you access to determine if you need that additional fund that SBA may offer you. We do have credit requirements like credit history. Applicants must have credit history acceptable to the SBA, and repayment, of course. Applicants must show the ability to repay all loans. So that will determine if the SBA can offer you that loan, among others. If SBA offer you the loan, you can decide in that moment if you want to take that loan. If you don't want to take it, at least we put the offer, right? And you will have a letter. You can come back for a specific time frame and request a reconsideration to the SBA if SBA offered you in the past the loan and you decided back then that you didn't want it at that moment. So you will have that availability, and that's going to be that day that you will have that time frame for you to come back to the SBA and request a reconsideration. If SBA offer you a loan, will be determined in the letter that you will receive. So that's why I always encourage everyone to submit your application. And for economic injury, that working capital loan that we spoke for small businesses and most private nonprofit organization, it will be October 16, 2023. So you will have 9 months since the day of this disaster declaration. As I mentioned before, interest rates are very low. For home loans, can be as low as 2.313%. And for businesses, the interest rate can be as low as 3.305%. And of course, the maximum years to repay this loan is 30 years. How you can have more information, we encourage everyone in the Merced County and surrounding counties. In Merced County specifically, my apologies, in Merced County, we have 2 centers right now. We're located in the Fairgrounds area, Merced Fairgrounds, and we have another one located in Planeta. Over there, you can request more information and assistance from all the agencies and local representatives that are allocated in those centers, including FEMA, the SBA, Cal OES, among others. So we encourage everyone to visit those centers. The one located in Fairgrounds is open Monday to Sunday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The one located in Planeta, for Merced County in Planeta, is Monday to Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you want more information, you can call us as well. 1-800-659-2955. 1-800-659-2955. And I'll circle back and thank you everyone for the opportunity that, you know, this window to share this information with all of the people in present. And Regina, I'll send the part back to you.
Okay, great. You know, I got a couple of questions while you were talking. So one that popped and raised up was by Sunita, who asked, why require credit worthiness? This knocks out the most vulnerable who may be amongst the worst impacted. Is
Yes,
there?
No, and I'm sorry. Yeah, that's one of that's why we always encourage to start the process with FEMA, to see what kind of assistance you can be received from FEMA. In the case that then you follow the step and you submit your application with the SBA, and SBA determines that they cannot offer you that disaster loan, you may be referred back to FEMA for other programs that they have. But of course, to know if you're eligible or no, you gotta follow the step, submitting your registration with FEMA, then submitting your application with the SBA. You have to follow through the steps. And of course, because it's a federal low interest disaster loan, it has to be repaid. That's why the SBA makes that determination to verify that you have the ability to repay that loan. We don't want you to compromise in a disaster loan that then you can feel the pressure that you have to, of course, repay back to the federal government, and we don't want to create that situation for you. The SBA is one agency that is trying to open the doors or giving you alternatives for you to recover. Because yes, the recovery process is a long-term process, so we want to be part of that process for you.
Great. And then how difficult are the applications to fill out? Do people need to get help and fill them out? Do they go somewhere? Are there SBA workshops online that you could share with the audience, that we could share with our audiences?
Thank you. I will be writing in the chat our website, because we do have videos about, you know, our offerings on disaster assistance area. At the same time, as I mentioned, and I know that my colleagues from Cal OES, from FEMA, we have a center that we actually sometimes, you know, we explain to people it's like a one-stop shop that you can just visit, and you will be receiving assistance from multiple agencies, including the state. So I encourage everyone, if you visit one of the centers, you will have one-on-one assistance. And in the case of the SBA personnel will guide you through the process to fill out that application. Once that application comes in, it's going to be allocated to an SBA specialist, and that SBA case manager or specialist will determine if they need other documents so you can continue the process. So this process will be guided through. We will be there for you. And we want to, I know it's a very difficult moment for a lot of people, businesses or homeowners that have been impacted. So we want to be of that kind of, we want to offer that assistance for you. So yes, there is a guided process in the centers. If not, you can visit our webpage and you can as well submit your application online.
Great. So we will, let's see here. Another question came from Nora Estrada. So far, how many are registered and how many could register?
I will point out to the date, March 16, 2023 for physical damage. That will be any person that was impacted on the 9 counties that my colleagues from FEMA mentioned: Calaveras, Merced, Monterrey, Sacramento, San Joaquin, San Luis Obispo, San Mateo, Santa Barbara, and Santa Cruz can apply, can visit one of the centers. We probably mostly in all the counties, and this is probably something that FEMA can, and the state can confirm this information. But mostly all the counties has centers right now offering assistance, one-on-one assistance. But at the same time, you can call us and we can guide you through the process. How many applications? I don't have that number. That's a great question in my mind. That you just that's a great question. But yes, I will refer to the physical damage day you got until March 16, 2023. And I will like to add something very quickly. For the contiguous counties of those 9 counties that I mentioned, all the contiguous counties, for those businesses that may be impacted because they are generating losses on their cash flow, they may apply for only the economic injury disaster loan. Let me just give you a very quick example. Stanislaus is not a declared county right now for, as a primary county, but it's a contiguous of Merced County. So that county is eligible for the SBA Economy Injury Disaster Loan. And this is only for businesses and most private nonprofit organizations. How can you know if your county is eligible only for that loan? I will put that on the chat, the webpage, so you can verify if your location have that loan available for you.
Great. Let's see here. Okay, well, great. So what we'll do is we will still have you around just in case there's another question that comes up around getting the disaster help from SBA. And we will go ahead and move on to Dayana Contreras with the Catholic Charities of Diocese of Fresno. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Dayana Contreras. As mentioned, I'm the program manager for our Listos, California, and our Medi-Cal program. We have offices in Bakersfield, Fresno, and Merced. And of course, because the flood, disaster, and recovery efforts are in Merced right now, we've been really focusing in that area. So I wanted just to give a little bit more of the community side of what we've been doing, how we've been responding, and also share some of the concerns that we've been hearing from our clients and the residents in that area. From the first day of the flood, we responded by providing our usual services. So our office is a walk-in office. We have a clothing and a food pantry. That is really where we get our most foot traffic. And so we responded by providing food to the migrant camps in Merced, Planada, which, as we know, was a community that was deeply affected. And we had a table at the fairgrounds, which was the disaster relief center. And so being there, we continued to share information. If anyone needed any of our services, we worked around the clock to provide. Because of the disaster, our food pantry, the items became something that would be more easy for our families to prepare and eat. And so we're talking about granola bars. We had Lunchables for the children, crackers. We have delivered a ton of water. And we also, because we have big trucks where we're able to do our deliveries, we have also volunteered to transport a lot of donated items from other organizations and churches. And so we partnered with the 2 local Catholic churches in the community. That is St. Vincent de Paul and Sacred Heart. And they have been amazing at responding to some of the needs regarding pillows and blankets. And so we partnered with them to distribute those across the city of Merced. Can we go to the next slide, please? I have a second one. And so one of the bigger services that we've recently added and we just kicked off at Catholic Charities. Well, let me say, when we were at the Disaster Relief Center, we also have services for CalFresh and Medi-Cal enrollment. And so that has been a big ask. We are helping families do the application process. As we know, we've heard that there might be some type of disaster relief with CalFresh. And so assisting families to start that process now. We work with them through the whole application process. These families are very overwhelmed, they're very emotionally drained. And so our assistance in being their case managers per se, through the DHCS system has been really relieving to a lot of them. We also have a diaper program, and so we've been helping anyone that needs assistance there. But we recently received news that we have been identified to start what we are calling the Disaster Case Management Program in response to the flooding in Merced. This is a program funded by FEMA, the California Department of Social Services, and Cal OES. And so at Catholic Charities, we have this program before. We focus on families and victims of the Creek fire. And so we basically are going to start this program, but now in Merced, geared at the families and the victims of the flooding. And so this program is something that just kicked off actually today. Our program manager just started in Merced. But we are hitting the ground running. As you know, there's a lot of need in that area. And so basically the program is going to assist families in Merced County for the next 2 years. As we know, the effects and the disaster that these families are going to be dealing with are going to go well off, beyond months and weeks. And so we are going to be helping these people to create a long-term recovery plan. And so really that can look different for every family. That could be connecting survivors to any community resources that are in the area, just identifying what someone can apply to, helping them even with advocacy and appeals. A lot of the families are very overwhelmed with, just the process or speaking with FEMA. We find that they're not asking all their questions at the booth. Maybe they felt a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe there is a language barrier. And so we really are just that in between to assist them through the process. We are finding that a lot of families have questions around the immigration status. I know we've already have gotten a response that there's still ways that we can assist, but a lot of these rural and migrant families, farm workers, sort of are used to word of mouth and sort of, asking a family member or a neighbor about information. And so even just helping them identify who are the credible resources that they need to go to be getting information, that alone can be something that a case manager assists family with. And so we're really excited that we have the opportunity to kick this program off almost immediately. We right now are in the process of signing people up, and really that's just collecting information, and it's doing a quick screening as to what are the needs that you may have, what do you and your family need, and putting you through our system. We're in the process of hiring our case managers, and so we already want to have the information ready. And so when the staff do come in, they already have a stack of files and families to begin working with. Some of the other concerns that we've had has also just been the elderly community. They need assistance from the physical aspect of it, getting things out of the house, the fear of mold building up. It can be wet mattresses or things in that nature. And so that's something that we as case managers can assist with, whether it be finding an organization or finding volunteers that can assist with that, to even filling out paperwork. We have elderly that are hard of hearing, maybe they can't read, they don't have, a son or a daughter or someone to assist them with this paperwork. And so we're seeing a big need there with the elderly community. And as well as, like I mentioned, just with the migrant, the farm working and immigration population. Before even the disaster, Catholic Charities, we do rural food distributions. And so we have always gone out to areas where families may not have a means of transportation, or areas where it's a lot more common for there to be multiple families living in one home, or a grandmother home, as some people know it as. And so we go to them and we distribute anywhere from 200 to sometimes 300 bags of food. And so that's something that we're continuing to do during this, now that we're in recovery mode, and providing them with that, as well as back in our office, we have a asylee program. We help anybody that has recently came into the country that needs help connecting with resources, our immigration program, and rent and utility assistance. And so we're working all around the clock as we kick off our new disaster case management program.
Is that the
Yes.
That's it? Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if that was the last slide. Okay. I know that we're coming up really, really close on time, but I know that we have a call here. I mean, a question here for you. CBOs were already overwhelmed by the pandemic. So were the CBOs really able to provide resources and recovery aid on the storms?
I think I can only speak for us, and I think what worked well with timing is that we currently have this program that I speak about in Fresno, and we do it assisting families that were affected by several fires in the area. And so the program is ongoing in Fresno. When we got news that we also got this program in Merced, basically our Fresno program is training our Merced program right now. And so everything is overlapping so that there is no time that's being wasted per se. And so we are already collecting information for families. We're already telling them you're going to get contacted by a case manager and we're going to get working with you. So as soon as we fill those positions, we are continuing to get the ball rolling and helping these families for the next 2 years. And there may even be an extension depending on, how the recovery mode goes. And so we personally have been able to respond almost immediately. And we have that flexibility of having staff shift to complete recovery mode for our Merced community.
Okay, great. Well, I know that we're running close on time, and we love to make sure that we end these on time to make sure that the media have opportunities to get this information out to their audiences. So I want to just ask 30 seconds maybe from each person, if that, 20 seconds probably from each person. What are the most powerful examples of recovery and resilience that each of you see that you could share? Deanna, you want to start? We can just go right back down that pathway.
Yeah. No problem. Gosh, I think that there's so many specific examples that we can kind of share on recovery, but at the end of the day, I think families being able to have the tools and resources they need throughout the emergency is really vital to ensure for proper recovery. And then I'll also add to that, you can kind of see on our screen that we have a whole host of resources and whatnot. And so if families and community members don't feel comfortable maybe going in person, getting help in person, we have also basically completed a whole suite of tools and information and resources online at lisoscalifornia.org/recovery and /resources. And so then they can go specifically and share their stories, get the help they need and deserve.
Great. Robert?
Thanks. I'll just say a couple quick things. One is that, another thing we have in disaster recovery is that disasters exacerbate pre-existing community conditions. And so whatever the challenges are before the disaster, they're only made worse afterwards. So whether it's affordable housing or access to health and social services, those are the areas that hit the hardest, right? And so one of the things that we're looking at in a disaster like this is what are the broader impacts from the disaster. So whether it's on the agricultural community, economic impacts for a region, et cetera, and trying to bring in all the necessary stakeholders to help on that level as well. And as far as lessons learned, really it's to have that effective feedback loop from the community themselves, right? So we can bring in the governmental partners and we work with our local community leaders, but we really need to have that feedback from the local community themselves in order for that to be effective. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. Brian?
Yeah, with regards to recovery efforts, it really starts and ends at the local level. The federal government and the state of California are here to support, of course, but it's really amazing to see at the local level what communities are able to accomplish and their resilience. I can't really stress how important it is to be individually ready, because I mean, who would have thought that we would be in a flooding event after so many years of fires and drought. So you know, we always want to pitch ready.gov here at FEMA and to be prepared as much as possible. Thanks.
Great. Luis?
Well, yes, thank you once again, and as well, try to be in contact with your emergency manager official in your specific county, and at the same time, just apply. You know, just start the recovery process. It's a step-by-step, but we got multiple centers around California, so let us help you. I'm sorry, and like I mentioned, March 16 is the latest date as for now. So try to be, you know, as soon as possible, submit your registration with FEMA and apply with SBA, and let us help you through your disaster recovery process.
And Dayana, we'll end with you.
I just want to say we've been focusing on really letting the community know that we are here and we're local based to assist them. I think it's been wonderful that outside resources were really quick to come onto Merced County, but there's something about your own local organization that's always been helping to respond. And these are our own staff members that are community members of Merced, whose parents, whose siblings, who themselves are also going through a recovery, helping and giving back. And so that's been such an honor for us to be able to do and respond quickly. And that's going to be our, you know, our focus moving forward.
Great. Well, thank you all to all the speakers today. Thank you to the reporters and the interpreters. You will get a recording of this. I believe we will have bios and contact information on how you will be able to follow up if you need to for any of your reporting. I want to thank you all for being here today. And until the next briefing, I will see you then. Have a wonderful day.